بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أفضل الأنبياء والمرسلين. So welcome to episode 2, as they say, session 2 inshallah. So just a quick refresher so that we're in the zone as they say from last week. So as I said, us as Muslims, we have two choices, there isn't a third. And we obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is ta'ah. And ta'ah is obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we obey Allah because He's our creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We all understand this. And there is no way to attain the acceptance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the ridwan that we are seeking, which is Jannah inshaAllah subhanahu wa ta'ala, except by obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also there is no contentment in life. You're always thinking about this and that and following this and rushing after this and what's the next pay packet, what's the next career move, what's the promotion, what's all this. It keeps somebody in turbulence. And by obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are content, we have tranquility. And therefore we do that, of course, by upholding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's orders and abstaining from all the prohibitions Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has advised us of in the Quran, which are all the ahkam, the rules of Islam. Allah, just as a refresher, of course, I'm going to go through these very quickly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said to us, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Today I've perfected your deen and completed my favor upon you and approved Islam as your deen. Now, do you remember what the definition of deen is from last week?
Way of life.
Yeah, it's okay. That's a bit high level. Way of life. What does deen mean? No. Part of it is submission. Part of it is the way of life. But how is it? What is the combination? As I said, deen is mentioned in a number of places in Quran. Yeah, in the deen عند الله الإسلام, but also وما كان ليوسف أن يأخذ أخاه في دين الملك. That Yusuf could not have taken his brother in the deen. The deen means authority. It means also the deen, which is the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it means also the authority and the sultan, which is how you govern your affairs. ما ينظم به أمور حياته, what you organize your affairs by. That is a combination of the two, and that is captured by one ayah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It says, هو الذي في السماء إله وفي الأرض إله. He is the God in the sky, He is the God on this earth. Some people think of God, some of the spiritual kind of beliefs and religions, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, all that, they may believe in God. Even the kuffar of Makkah believed in God, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used to say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would say in the Quran, قُلْ مَنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Say who has created the heavens and the earth. And the kuffar of Makkah, the mushrikeen, say Allah. But okay, obey Allah in the ruling? No. So this is them differentiating between Allah in the sky and Allah on earth. They want it to be Allah on earth. And that's what all these parliaments and all these people, they do. They want to be Allah on earth. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ta'ah, which is obedience. By Allah, they will not believe in truth. So none of us will believe until they make you judge of what is in dispute between them. فَلَا وَرَبِّكَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ حَتَّى يُحَكِّمُوكَ فِي مَا شَجَرَ بَيْنَهُمْ. They will not believe until they make you the sole resolver of any disputes between them. And by you, meaning Rasulullah of course is the messenger of Allah, meaning the hukm of Allah. Because he is, as we know, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَمَا يَنطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ in Surah Al-Najm, that he does not utter anything from his whims or desires. إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ, he is but revelation. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So, also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, it is not for a believer, man or woman, when Allah and His Messenger have decreed a matter, that they should have an option in their decision. We don't have any options. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided, that's it. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, that's it. And one of the key tenets of our aqidah to understand is that the revelation is not just the Quran. The hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is a revelation. It may be the words of Rasulullah, because they're different from the words of the Quran, but they are revelation. Now, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول obey Allah and His Messenger. How can we obey the Messenger? From the Hadith. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا آتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ. What Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave you, take it. وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ, and what He has forbidden you, leave it. This is in Surah Al-Hashr also. Okay. And so Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made everything for us clear. And we said that one of the key things, we're entering into Ramadan, He made the whole thing about the sighting of Ramadan and the hilal of Ramadan and the crescent of Ramadan clear for all of us. And we mentioned all of the aspects there. So let me then touch on something that from fiqh, which is very, very important. I want you to understand. When I talk to people, I always try and wrap things in, so that you understand everything. You have to understand your deen. You don't need a mufti, you don't need a sheikh, you don't need a call center to, what can I do? No, you don't need any of that. Each one of you has to understand. For the aspects, you don't have to understand the whole of the deen, but before you do something, you need to understand what is the hukum in that thing, in that action. Doesn't mean that you understand everything. Nobody understands everything. It's just not possible. But before you make that decision, before you make that activity, before you take that action, before you make that step, you need to know what is the hukum. Otherwise, you are not going to be obedience to Allah. You are not going to be worshipping Allah when you do that action. You'll be doing it for yourself because you don't know. I'm going to do it. Why are you doing it? Is it permissible? Is it mubah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَخَلَقْنَا لَكُمْ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. We have created everything for you on earth. That means everything on earth is mubah. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made specifics. So this is what is known in Sharia. It is known as hukum am, a general permissibility. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes specification. He does what is known as in Arabic takhsis. And takhsis is specification. So when He specifies, He says, حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَيْتَةِ. The dead animal is prohibited. Alcohol is prohibited. Khanzir is prohibited. Yeah? So this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then specifies. So either Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us general permissibility and specifies, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us order to do. So He says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ. Do salah. Or كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامِ. The siyam has been ordered for you. This is order. And how we know the order is fard or mandub is how the ayah or the evidence, so either Quran or Sunnah, links to reward and punishment. So if it says Ya ayyuhal ladina, if it says muflihun, that means you will enter into Jannah. That means that order is fard. If it leaves it open, then it is something that you are mandub. That means you are recommended to do. Same thing with the prohibitions. Not everything is haram. Otherwise, we can't do anything. Yeah, there are certain things that are haram. They are clear-cut haram. There are some aspects of prohibitions which are known as makruh, disliked. We shouldn't do. Okay, and that will differ. And that will differ between the different imams, etc. So when we talk about when we come to the principle of ibadat, which are the worships in Islam, it is known with the people of fiqh. They know it as tawqifiyah. That means they are invariable or fixed. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did 4 rak'ahs for dhuhr, tawqifi. Don't ask why. Yeah? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said we fast from the first light till sunset, tawqifi. Ayat in the Quran says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a hand. Do we kind of think, oh, is it what kind of hand? No, it's tawqif. That's it. Stop there. Because what we're doing is we're trying to humanize Allah. We cannot do that. It's haram. ليس كمثله شيء. There's nothing like him. There are people, theologists, ilm al-kalam, and the people who speak, and they try to think beyond their capability, beyond the possibility of the mind, and they enter. Oh, Allah has a hand, a right hand, left hand, two hands. What are you trying to say? This is who created the heavens and earth. So, new moon, new month, and sighting. What's the difference between the three? What do you think? So, new month, new moon, and sighting. Now we know, astronomers will tell you, that a new month happens. This is how they see it in the West, and how astronomers generally see it, that the new month, they see it differently to how the Muslim scholars saw it. Because for them, the new month, they will say the new, I'm talking lunar month, huh? So not the solar month. We're talking lunar month because it's Ramadan, we're talking about Hilal, we're talking about, so lunar month. For them, lunar month means that as soon as the moon disappears and goes into what is known as conjunction. So you know the principle of conjunction? So conjunction is basically اللي هو الاقتران بالعربي نحن نسميه. So the principle of conjunction is when Earth, Moon, and Sun are in one straight line. You can't see the moon. Because the moon, subhanallah, you can only see it when it moves slightly away from the sun. So therefore then the light, as it comes, will start shining the part that has passed the sun. Otherwise it's right in front of the sun, you can't see it. And so that time of conjunction, in the West, the astronomers call that the new month, the new lunar month. In Islam, no. In Islam, we know that the month is either 29 or 30 days, because that's what Rasulullah told us. So when it goes after the 28th day, when it starting to come and align with the earth, it hides there for a couple of days. And then it starts moving. So sometime between the 28th and the 30th, it's in that place. And there was a fascinating picture that I saw a few days ago. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran about the hilal, حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم. Urjun is the have you seen, you know, palm trees? Yeah, have you seen how the dates, they're all kind of connected to each other in like a string? That string is known as al-urjun. And if you see, some of the urjuns come like this, almost like a sine wave. Yeah, they plotted the hilal through all of its movement through the 28 phases until it goes into the 30th, and it looks exactly like al-urjun. Subhanallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us this 1400 years ago, before they even had the ability to track the lunar movements and be able to map it and be able to visualize it and be able to do all what they can do now these days with all the high level technology. Another thing, I know you're all engineers, so you love these stories. There is astaghfirullah, I forget now the surah, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that in the sky there are pathways. So a Syrian physicist who works for NASA said that they did an experiment because they needed NASA's computers, because there's no other computers could actually do this, and they actually mapped everything that they have, and they've actually shown that there are actually pathways within. There's a fascinating video. I'll find it. I'll send you the link. When I saw it, I just couldn't hold myself. It was just amazing. These are the things that, subhanallah, give you qash'arira, make you, realize the the might of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Quran. Of course, our belief in the Quran is the book of Allah is not based upon the scientific proofs that they have today. Because all of these scientific proofs, even if they are proofs, they are still doubtful. Because you never know what supercomputer they have in 10 years' time that proves something completely different. So we don't take the doubt to prove the fact. For us, Quran is fact. Because this is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right. So new month, as I said, so the astronomers, this is what they think of in the West. But in Islam, we know it's 28 days that we can see. 29th, 20th, or 28th, 29th, it will go and hide in the conjunction. In the Now, the new moon happens immediately after conjunction. So as soon as conjunction is finished and the moon starts to move, then the new moon has happened. But we can't see it. Because the light, because it's moving at a certain speed, and as it's moving, the light from, the sun is very far away. So by the time the light comes to us, it's already moved quite a bit. Yeah. So we can't really see it that well, and without enhancing images, we can't really see it. But there is a new moon. Now, sighting, as we mentioned last week, is the ability to see it. And the ability to see it, of course, as it moves, then we are able then to recognize it. And that's why it takes about 10 to 11 hours, because of the distance of the sun and the light traveling, that we can actually then are able to see it with a telescope or with our naked eye. From about 11 hours onwards we can. 10 to 11 hours is a doubt area. That anything less than 10 hours, 9 hours, it's impossible for the human eye to see it. No human eye has ever seen it. They've seen it with very high light enhancing telescopes and things like that. There was a French astronomer who was able to see it after 1 hour or something like that. But the equipment that he had is light enhancing. It's not for us. But it doesn't mean that we don't use the scientific calculations and the calculations to enable us and to help us and to aid us in terms of saying, okay, well, look, we think we're going to see it at this time. So an hour before everybody goes out trying to do it. So we use it as an aid. But it is not sighting. For us, the hilal is sighting. Because that is a condition, that is the condition of the hukm shari. صوموا لرؤيته رؤية. And we have to see it. So the birth of the crescent is an astronomical identifier of the presence of the lunar month. Okay, that's the definition. That's what it is. But it's not a Sharia identifier of the presence of the hukum, that the rule is now in place. Differentiate between the two. Yeah. Okay. So what we have to then differentiate is that the birth of the crescent is considered as an astronomical reason, astronomical sabab, and it's not the Sharia sabab. Yeah. So just want you to be happy with that, because why do I use the word sabab? So for example, when Rasulullah ﷺ gave us some sabab for everything. So for example, for dhuhr, he said from the time that the sun moves from the zenith, yeah, the middle of the day, just past the zenith, dhuhr starts. Until when? He says until the shadow is one, and in another hadith, until the shadow is almost two. But not two. When it becomes two, it's asr. Okay? So we can use the astronomical kind of calculations to help us, but that it has no consequence. We can't fast based upon the calculations. We have to cite it. Okay. So now and a lot of people in Sharia, they will call it the calculation, they call it hisab. We have it it's the same word available in Urdu, in Arabic, it's hisab. I think even in other languages, anybody who's got a Muslim community, the word hisab or hasaba will be in their language somewhere. Yeah. I'm seeing nods everywhere. Everybody knows. MashaAllah. Okay. So I'm not wrong when I say that we all have it. Okay. So, and then therefore, but we cannot mix the two sabab. As I said, one is an aid and the other one is the actual sabab for which we will fast, which is the sighting. But we also have to understand that sometimes people will make mistakes. Like what happened a couple of years ago when Taliban decided that they wanted to fast. Yeah. And that was completely wrong. Because that is where the astronomical science will come through and say, well, what are you talking about? He hasn't even finished the month yet. Because we cannot have 28 days. Rasulullah said the month is 29 or 30. We cannot have 28. We cannot have 27. We cannot have 31. 29 or 30. 29 you cite it. If you don't cite it, it's 30. If you don't, even if it's then on the 30th, it's cloudy, khalas. There's no 31st. It's the first of the month. There's another principle that a lot of people can sometimes talk about, which they talk about the principle of matali', which are the lunar latitudes. So what they're saying is that people in this area can if they don't see the moon, it's only for them. And they're talking about 180 kilometers. They're talking about maybe a distance further north and south. That doesn't work, because today the knowledge that we have from science, from astronomy, that doesn't mean anything, because they've given us a wide range of knowledge that the birth of the moon occurs at the moment of conjunction between Earth, Moon, and Sun. So that then leads to a solar eclipse, because the moon comes between the Sun and the Earth, and many times we don't see that eclipse because it happens in the middle of the night or after sunset, or just before sunset, so we don't see it. But the time when the Taliban came, the solar eclipse happened that next day over the Atlantic. So it just proves. Hang on a minute, I think you made a mistake there. It was last month, what you saw. So this birth occurs as the moon stands in direct line between Earth and the Sun, and thus eclipses part of the Sun from Earth, and then a solar eclipse occurs. So pre-conjunction, we would have been in the month, let's say month of Sha'ban, and then post-conjunction, during conjunction, causing the solar eclipse, we are in between the month of Sha'ban and Ramadan, and then the new Hilal is born after the eclipse. And we also know that the Hilal so after that it's born, and then we have to wait until the light kind of allows the travels that distance, and then we are able to sight it. As I said, it takes about 10 to 11 hours. But we also know that the Hilal lags the sun by approximately 48 minutes per day. So that's why the 10-11 hours helps, because by the time we see it, by the time the sun sets, you cannot see the Hilal when the sun is out. It's too bright, the sun, especially at the early part. During the rest of the days you can, because it's big enough, you can still see it. However, and it has enough size, etc., and all that. However, in the early part, just after conjunction, what actually happens is that after the sun sets, or just as the sun is setting, you can then see that little Hilal coming out. And you can then see it, and then you can start. It takes about 10 to 11 hours after conjunction is completed. So that kind of relates to about 40 to 44 minutes after it's born, after the conjunction is completed. And if you think about it, if we're saying 11 hours, then the time difference between east and west is 12 hours and 24 minutes. So if you take it all the way from, let's say from Indonesia, Borneo, probably the farthest east that you could go in Indonesia. And you go all the way across to the US, right? You're talking about 12 hours difference. So if they see it over the Atlantic, or they see it just on the East Coast, or even in the Midwest, there's plenty of time for them to do imsak. To tell them. It's the same hilal. And already astronomy, and they've already shown us that there's no difference between the latitudes. So basically, whether north or south, it's still the same hilal. It's moving that way. It doesn't go that way. Yeah? Okay. So I wanted to cover that piece because that was kind of continuation from last week. How much time we have? Okay. So what I want to say to you is, as we enter Ramadan, there are things that we need to do. We need to be ready for this month. We need to prepare for this month. And that preparation is not only just physical preparation in terms of, get yourself fit, and you get your Taraweeh and Salah and all of that, and fasting and being without water and all those things. No. There is very much a Aqidah perspective to this and a spiritual perspective to this. We have to be ourselves clean from the inside. We have to be, in a way, having forgiven everybody. Do not enter Ramadan while you are upset with someone, or you're angry at someone, or you are, you have maybe a fight, or we call it in Arab daghina. So you're holding something in your heart against someone. Forgive everybody, and forgive them for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that on the day of judgment, there will be people who will come, and they will have so much light and so many angels around them, that everybody will be, who are these people? Who are these people? Who are these people? And then they will tell them, إنهم المتحابون في الله. They are the ones who love each other in Allah. Yeah? المتحابين في الله. It's a group of people that it takes a lot. Because we face a lot of things in life. And I'm talking about, of course, متحابين في الله. That means, other brothers and sisters in Islam. We love for what Allah loves. We dislike for what Allah dislikes. We don't make our own rules. Otherwise, if we make our own rules, then we will become like animals. So what we do and what we abide by. So what we have to understand is that we're not only fasting from food and water. We're also fasting from that, the tongue. Especially people when they're hungry and they're thirsty, they're short fuse. But then you break your fast. You annul your fast. Siyam is also that tongue. The Siyam is also the heart. And remember, we have on the right or on the left. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَنَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ. We know what his soul is whispering to himself. All of the thoughts that you have, Allah knows them. Now, we're not held accountable for the thoughts. We're held accountable for the actions. But the thoughts, Allah also knows them. So think always at the time when you get a thought and it's a bad thought, do istighfar. And always make sure that when we're fasting, we are fasting and abstaining for Allah. And therefore that includes abstaining from our tongues, abstaining from hatred or hateful situations. We also are abstaining from doing things that are haram, that are illegal or not permissible for us. Entering into contracts, or entering into deals, or entering into business, or or maybe helping someone to do something that's wrong, cheat in an exam or something like that. We don't do this. We don't lie as Muslims, regardless. Doesn't really matter. There are certain situations where we're allowed to lie. We're allowed to lie to the enemy if we were in battle, but Nobody's in battle here. Huh? we're, we're at university trying to study. So don't lie and say, I'm sick, and you're actually playing a football game. That's lying. We should not do that. There are certain tenets where we do not do such things. And this is because that is why we are such unique characters. Because of the things that we hold on to. So when we enter Ramadan, we have to remind ourselves of what are the wrong things that I've done. And either end them if you can end them, or if you've maybe borrowed money from someone who's been asking you for such a long time to pay them back, and you're always, changing your telephone number so it doesn't find you and things like that. No, pay people back. Ask them for time. But don't, because you're entering Ramadan, you're going to enter that month to fast. You have to be pure. And I'm saying this not because we worship Ramadan. No, it's because it is the practice for what happens when you leave Ramadan. If you get used to it and practice it, when you leave that month, you will take all of this with you. Well, inshallah, I hope you do anyway. It's very, very important. There are those who will, when it comes to inheritance with their brothers and sisters and all that, and they'll take things because they happen to be the elder brother, or they happen to be the, say or maybe lie. My father owes me money. I have to take my money out first, then we divide the rest. And maybe only you and your father know about it. Or maybe your father gave you a loan, which you had to repay back to all of the inheritors, and you keep quiet about it. It's haram. All of those things you have to make sure that everything that we do, we are on the day of judgment. That mouth will be closed, and the hands will speak, the skin will speak, the legs will speak, and you can't control them. And the human will go back to and say, why did you speak? Antaqana Allah. Allah made us speak. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, اقرأ كتابك كفى بنفسك اليوم عليك حسيبا. Read your book. You are sufficient as a witness upon yourself. Don't need witnesses. Yourself, you'll, as they say, spill the beans. You'll be talking about everything. You will give up all the evidence. I think the Americans said he's singing like a canary, I think they say. So, some people will take money and they say, and then you will see they will give zakah. But they're sitting there in some company or some government agency, and they're taking bribes, and they're not allowing people to complete their work, and they're putting hurdles for people and making difficult for people to complete things. And they know there are solutions for people, but they no, don't talk about it. They do it even in this country. It's not just our countries. All of those things, how can you? How can you give zakah from money that is ill-gotten? Doesn't make sense. All of these people who then, they go Hajj every year with, from corruption money. So what are you doing? Also remember, part of what we have to do and what is a key characteristic of us is Silat al-Rahim. You know Silat al-Rahim? The Rahim is the womb of the mother. So Silat al-Rahim is everybody who has come from that womb. Your uncles, your aunts, your brothers, your sisters. Sila, that means connection. Yes, we are distributed across the world. We can't see them face to face all the time, but phone them, video calls, even video messages. Send them a video message, 1 minute message, once a week. it brings that softness in the heart. This life makes the heart very hard, to the extent that over this heart you feel like there's a hard crest, like somebody's poured concrete on it. The only way to break that is to clean it all the time. Clean it so that you are soft. And remember that Islam was spread to so many wide areas, to Indonesia, to Malaysia. I speak to a lot of brothers, in the mosques. I mean, there's a huge Bengali community here. So I speak to them, and they're always talking. They're always, oh, you're from Yemen. Oh, mashallah, Yemen, Shah Jalal. You know Shah Jalal? You know Shah? I have no idea who Shah Jalal is. But they tell me Shah Jalal is a trader from Yemen who went there, and he's the one who took Islam to Bangladesh. They actually have a story about Shah Jalal. They have a story about Shah Jalal. They say that he went, and there was one tyrant, oppressor, an idol worshipper there, and who was stopping everybody from taking their money and wealth and everything. And that he sat there in front of his house and he did dua a day, and for hours, until his whole palace collapsed. I don't know if this is true or not true, but this is what they say to me. Okay, so but this is how Islam was spread. Not always through conquests, not always through Khalid bin Walid or Tariq bin Ziyad or Sulaiman al-Qanuni or Muhammad al-Fatih, Khalid bin Walid. It wasn't always like that. It was also through traders. In Singapore, 4 of the biggest trading families are all from Yemen. So also in Malaysia and in Indonesia. If you go all the way to Africa, to the depth of Africa, that whole strip, all the way from Sudan across to Chad, across to Senegal, Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Mali, Ivory Coast, all of that strip, that was spread by traders, by people going and carrying da'wah. And that da'wah came, and this is a story that's narrated about traders who went to Indonesia. They came at some point in time together, they say, in one of the Indonesian ports. They came at the same time as as the Dutch in the early 1500s. And they say that the Indonesians, in their history, they say that when the Dutch came, they always came and they had all of their priests, and they had their crucifix, and they had all of those things, and they would come down and they would have a line and the traders and all that. And then they looked, and there's the Muslims. They come and they're easy people, nothing. And when the Muslims were praying, it wasn't the captain of the ship. It was maybe one of the youngest, maybe the person who cleans the ship, because he knows the Quran more. It was humbleness and humility and courtesy and the ability to show, what is this Islam? What is it? So this is some of the things that we have to think about. But we also have to think about that as we enter Ramadan, that what did all of the Sahaba and the Khulafa and the Umara and the Sultans did throughout. They were always enabling and facilitating for the Ummah to use the money of the Ummah to improve everybody. And so there was no such thing as control of the markets. You have 4 or 5 companies and that's it. And even between them, they say, oh no, we got 50 supermarket brands now. Yeah, and then you discover every few years that the CEOs of those supermarkets, the CEOs of those companies were in the back making deals. No, look, I'll tell you when I drop my prices. You don't drop your... Yeah? They make deals. They were doing that. Airlines across with tickets. They were doing it with cars. They were doing it with petrol. You read the few last year when they were talking about the pricing of petrol, how they've been cheating the motorists in this country for the last 20 years. I mean, you have maybe about 15 different petrol brands. They're still cheating. Doesn't matter. They said, no, we have more competition. What more competition? Because they have not fixed what's in their hearts. What's in their hearts is greed. They want more. They want more. It's greed. In Islam, we don't have greed. They would actually say, the traders, they would actually say, I've done enough today. My brother did not sell today. Go to my brother. Because they had qana'ah. They had conviction. What am I hoarding the money for? So that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses it to burn my back on the day of judgment? No. It's there to be shared amongst everybody. It's there to be used amongst everybody. It is there to be circulated. That is why one of the principles of economics in Islam is that to circulate the money and the wealth in the economy. Why? Number one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَآتُوهُم مِّن مَالِ اللَّهِ الَّذِي آتَاكُمْ. Give them from the wealth that Allah has given you. We are only guardians of this money. Either we use it to buy a place with Allah, or we use it and abuse it, and then we will get our just punishment for it. So this is how we understand Islam, to open our mind. Islam, some people will say that Islam controls you, confines you, squeezes you into a corner, you can't do this, you can't do that. The answer to this is, there are specifics in our lives that we have to do because we believe vehemently, yaqeen, that we are worshipping Allah. That worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why would someone spend 10 years at university doing some stupid hours in A&E for almost no pay to become a consultant? Right? Somebody would go through, from the age of 19 till they're 40, until they become a professor. Why? And then they tell me Islam is confining me? No. That tranquility that I have, the acceptance that I have, actually smashes that glass ceiling above me. Nothing stops me. Because I know that I can achieve anything I want. Because I have no fear. I know my rizq is already predetermined. The day I die is predetermined. Any calamity is predetermined. So why should I worry? Be scared. Can I cross the road? I can't cross the road. Will I get food? Will I not get food? Why? Why are you worried? So all of those things, we are unshackled as an ummah. That's why they don't like us. Because we are unshackled. They can't control us. They can't put the fear in us like they do with everybody else. You're going to lose your home. You're going to lose your car. You're going to lose your kids. You're going to lose your career. Shh, keep quiet. You can't talk about this. No, what? We don't fear any of these things. We have respect. We have empathy with people. We don't go shouting at people and screaming, you ignorant imbecile. No, we don't do such things. Because you're trying to win people's hearts. To win people's hearts, you have to explain. You have to introduce them. You have to manage that message to them. So as we enter Ramadan, I want you to think about all of these things. Very, very important. Ramadan for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was a month where he did all of what I've just said, where Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam ordered the Sahaba, where he pushed them, because it purifies the heart and it gives you good practice for endurance. You're hungry, you're thirsty, and you are striving for more. Gives you strength. Many of the battles of Islam were done during Ramadan. So many. I will let me give you an example. Fath al-Andalus was on the 1st of Ramadan. The whole of al-Andalus. It started on the month of Ramadan. So there is also, on the 2nd of Ramadan, there was the Battle of Poitiers in, what we know it in Arabic is Balat al-Shuhada, the Martyrs Plateau, which was north of Al-Andalus into Spain, as they entered into Spain. A major battle during, in France, sorry, yes, from Spain into France, sorry, Jazakallah khair. On the 3rd of Ramadan, Rasulullah went out. It was the first time that Rasulullah was given the permission on the 3rd of Ramadan. On the 4th of Ramadan was the first banner, the first liwa that Rasulullah had actually tied for Hamza radiallahu anhu in the Battle of Badr. Also, on the 4th of Ramadan, Sultan Suleiman al-Qanuni opened Belgrade. And on the 5th of Ramadan, the Ottoman state, oh, by the way, don't ever call it the Ottoman Empire. Don't ever call it empire. Empire has a very, very defined political meaning. Islam is not an empire. Never has been, never will be. Empires subjugate people. Islam liberates people. That is why we have the Ottoman state. That's why we had the Seljuks as our amirs. We had Kurds as our amirs. We had Imam Bukhari, Imam Muslim. Yeah? Islam is a melting pot. It melts everybody based upon La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. No difference between any of us. White, black, I don't want to use these words, but yellow, whatever you want to call, east, west, north, south, short, tall, man, woman, there's no difference between us. Except in our piety to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No difference whatsoever. Rasulullah ordered us to obey regardless. On the 6th of Ramadan, Muhammad ibn Qasim al-Thaqafi opened the land of Sindh, which is part of India today. You know the Battle of Amuriya? You hear about Amuriya? Al-Mu'tasim Billah? You remember, you all know the story. Wa Islamah. Yeah? The woman who shouted, Wa Islamah. Some of the narrations say that she was not a Muslim woman, but she was a citizen of the Islamic State. Some of them say she was a Christian. But as she was taken by the Romans, she shouted, Wa Islamah. And that news came to Al-Mu'tasim Billah, Al-Khalifa Al-Abbasi. And he said, Labbaik. And he went out immediately. He didn't even pray. He jihad and God. And he went and demolished all of didn't demolish it, he conquered Amuriya, and he returned them. Also, on the 7th, Corsica, Catania in Sicily were conquered by the Lord Admiral the Ottoman one, Targhut Bek, where he achieved that. Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh. On the 8th of Ramadan, very interesting thing happened. On the 8th of Ramadan, as Rasulullah was going to the Fath of Mecca, the conquest of Mecca, and this is Rasulullah, this is leadership. He he sent Abu Qatada al-Ansari in a misdirection. He sent him to a place called Ida, which is in a completely different direction to Mecca. So the Mecca and their spies were saying, "Oh, Rasulullah, he's sending an expedition somewhere else," to misdirect them so they don't know that he's coming to Mecca. Of course, on the 8th of Ramadan was also Tabuk, the Battle of Tabuk. On the 8th of Ramadan, the army of Islam came back. This is 164 Hijrah. After to back to Cordoba, to Cordoba, after having defeated Charlemagne, I think in English, Charlemagne. And of course, the 8th of Ramadan also was the order from the Catholic Church for the Spanish Inquisition, and ordering all and every single Muslim to be either killed or that they should reject Islam. And the days go. 9th Ramadan, the 10th of Ramadan, in the Battle of Mansura in Egypt. So the Battle of Mansura was against the Crusaders in 648 Hijrah, when actually the French king Louis IX was actually killed, and he was taken prisoner in 648 Hijrah. On the 11th of Ramadan, very important also, when Thaqif from Taif. Now you remember Taif, where Rasulullah went and they threw the stones at him, and they didn't want to accept Islam. And then Jibril came to Rasulullah and he said to him, he said that the angel of the mountains is waiting your order. We will collapse the mountains on them. And he said, no, maybe from their offspring there will be Muslims. So on the 11th of Ramadan, in the 9th year of Al-Hijrah, Thaqif came and submitted to Islam, to Rasulullah in Mecca, in Medina, in Al-Haram Al-Madani, in the Masjid of Rasulullah. And Rasulullah sent back with them Sufyan ibn Sakhr ibn Harb wal Mughira ibn Shu'bah to do what? To destroy all their idols. To demolish all of the idols that were there. On the 12th of Ramadan, Rasulullah orders all of the Sahaba to gather and to get ready for combat, but he doesn't tell them where they're going. You know why? Fath Makkah. And also on the 12th of Ramadan, year 13 Hijrah, was the victory of the Muslim armies against the Persians in one of the battles. On the 12th also, the Ottomans in Vienna in year 1094 Hijrah. And on the 13th of Ramadan, a milestone, major event for the Ummah, Umar ibn Khattab. What did he do on the 13th of Ramadan? Where did he arrive? Having traveled Quds. He arrived to Quds, having traveled the distance. Exactly. And when he arrived, how was he?
He was just leading the camel and servant was on fighting.
Exactly. And what did the priests of Quds say?
Remember,
Yeah, they said this is exactly how you are in our books. That you would be walking. And it was the name of the patriarch was I mean, I have it in Arabic. I think I'm not sure how it's pronounced in English, but Sophronius maybe. Yeah. Um, and he established at that time what is known as al-Uhd al-Umariyah, the Umar Treaty. Now also, and on the 15th of Ramadan in 1224 Hijrah, the Ottomans defeat the Russians. Subhanallah. That's only 200 years ago, you know, or 225 years ago. Not a long time ago. On the 16th was the conquest of Kashmir. 17th, of course, is Badr. On the 18th was very interesting. In 484 Hijrah was Yusuf bin Tashfin, a military leader who actually brought and collected all of the at that time, already 400 years after the conquest of Al-Andalus, they'd split and fragmented. So he collected them back all together again and made them strong again. On the 19th of Ramadan, very interesting here, in 1094 Hijrah, there was a Crimean commander. His name is Murad Kubrai. He committed one of the biggest treacheries in Islam, where he actually allowed the Polish and the Austrian armies to cross the river so that they can relieve Vienna, and therefore to break the blockade that the Ottomans had surrounded Vienna. On the 20th was the 20th was Fath Makkah. Rasulullah ﷺ entered Makkah. On the 23rd of Ramadan, go back all the way to the beginning, but on the day of the 23rd of Ramadan was Nuzul al-Quran. So when the Quran was revealed. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. Yeah. Also on the 23rd is when Rasulullah ﷺ on the 8th of Hijrah destroyed the idol of Allat. Allat wal-Uzza ومناة الثالثة الأخرى. You know, the three idols. And then on the 24th, the next day, Manat was destroyed. So Fath Makkah on the 20th, on the 23rd was the destruction of Allat, 24th the destruction of Manat, on the 25th was the destruction of Al-Uzza. Also the 25th, Ain Jalut. More Ottoman victories. On the 26th of Ramadan is when Rasulullah ﷺ came back from Tabuk. 27th of Ramadan, we all know it as the night of, as most of the narrations say, it's Laylat al-Qadr. Rasulullah ﷺ said, look at it in the odd days from the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 25th. On the 28th of Ramadan, on the second year of Al-Hijrah, is when Zakat al-Fitr was ordered. That is when we have to give, the Zakah of Fitr just the night before the end of Ramadan. So this is just some events that occurred. I'm sure there's plenty more. But these are some of the events that happened in Ramadan. So I don't want to too much for you. Yeah, I did do too much. Sorry. So Jazakumullah khair, Barakallah fikum. Questions, please ask me. Please.
Yeah, when we say the 21st of Ramadan, is it the 21st night of Ramadan? Is it the night before 21st or the night after 21st?
Yeah, very interesting. A debate I always have with him, which is, understand, Laylat, for the Arabs, the Layla is the night before. So if tomorrow is the 21st, then tonight is the Layla. Tonight is the night of the 21st. And in Sharia, we always talk about the night off, because the day for us finishes at Maghrib. That's it. Yeah. Okay, so it's always the night off. Any more? Any questions? Okay. So think about all that I've said. Think about, all of the aspects that, you are the future. We're all getting old. So it is us passing on to you this knowledge and you having it, and understanding that it's not gonna. A lot of people try to frighten you and scare you and tell you, no, you're gonna become unwanted or unliked, or it's got nothing to do with it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the hearts of people between his fingers. قلوب البشر بين يديه يقلبها كيف يشاء. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could make Fir'aun love Musa, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can make anyone love us. Right? But this is the nature of the battle between truth and falsehood. It is from the day Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the heavens and the earth. From the day Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam and Iblis refused to bow, Haqq and Batil will be in confrontation, in battle, until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides everything is done. So we have to be on the side of truth, regardless of what it may be. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam showed us this, demonstrated, and then everything will come. Because if there is anything about the reality of life, is nothing ever lasts. Nothing lasts. At one point in time, I remember a speech by a man called Lord Palmerston. He used to be Foreign Secretary for this country in 1856. And his speech was speech of somebody who controlled the world. 100 years later, it's nothing. 1956, Britain is humiliated and told, don't you ever attack anybody again, go back. When they attacked Abdul Nasser and they attacked Suez, they can't do anything anymore. Today they are, this country is nothing but a lackey for the Americans. Go do this, yes sir. That's what they do. So nothing lasts. Nothing ever lasts. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lasts. Only the truth will last. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us all guardians of the truth and keep us always with the truth. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us and guard us and lighten and gives us light in our hearts, in our thinking, gives us inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala steadfastness, and gives us inshallah endurance, so that we may endure and we may hold. And with everything, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that all of the actions and all of the efforts of a mu'min and his life is in khair, always in good. Even if a thorn enters his shawkatun tashukhu, he will get hasana. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us hasanat. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us inshallah to worship him and enables us and facilitates for us how to worship him inshallah in Ramadan and after Ramadan. بإذن الله تعالى. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين. اللهم انصر أخواننا المقاتلين في سبيلك في كل مكان. اللهم يا رب أرحم موتانا وموتى المسلمين. اللهم تقبل شهداءنا. اللهم يا رحمن يا رحيم يا لطيف يا خبير يا رب العالمين. اللهم كن مع أيتامنا وأراملنا يا رب العالمين. اللهم أطعمهم، اللهم البسهم، اللهم عافهم يا رب العالمين. اللهم ارحمنا وارحم والدينا وأمهاتنا وآبائنا وكل من أحبنا فيك يا رب العالمين. اللهم ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة عين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أفضل الأنبياء والمرسلين. جزاكم الله خير.